Hello everybody, and welcome back to Overwatch 2, and this is going to be slightly different than what I usually do, because I have to fill both niches of myself of being a mod developer, and someone who thinks about game design, and then plays the game actually competitively and trying to teach it. So you'll kind of see these videos from me time to time that talk about changes I would like to see for the game, or where I would like to see the balance go. Especially now I'm beginning to play at a higher rank now, like I have in the very long past ago. I thought I would give my 2 cents because I understand the game to a core due to game design and playing it at a high level. Shifting Mindsets episode 2 will probably come out after this. I just have to work on it, but I figured I'd work on this first because I thought it was a neat idea, as sadly as it stands, I've kind of been dropping Ramattra as one of my main tanks. Why? I just don't think he's that good. Now he can be played in pro play pretty well, because people use the attention he takes in block form and use it properly. Low ranks, he's kind of like another form to Reinhardt, and can play a lot more adaptably compared to Reinhardt. Which is why he probably sees a lot of play in lower ranks and works pretty well. Masters Plus, I feel like other tanks just do what Ramattra does, but better. Even if he does most things, he just doesn't do them well. Now, I have gotten shut down by, like, one Ram recently on New Junk City. But to be fair, that was more of a full team diff rather than him diffing me. I was playing Queen, which is already kind of a weird matchup, but I can kind of pull him out of position for the most part, and that's all I can do for him. In a fight, unless he has all of his cooldowns, and even if I have all my cooldowns, he kind of wins that fight. Especially if he stalls out his Nemesis properly. But without shield, he's kind of a sitting duck. Because Nemesis is not enough to outbeat a Queen, I don't think. Anyways, I wanted to talk about an ultimate idea. Because, I'm going to be honest, I've been playing a lot of Ram, and Annihilation just feels so hard to get value out of unless you have a nano, some form of speed boost, or a lot of support from your team, because you take all that attention, but you don't gain much in order to take all that attention. It feels more like an additional amount of damage. Just helps with some breakpoints, but doesn't really feel like much. I don't know. I just don't think Annihilation's that good. Used to be pretty broken because people didn't know how to play against it, and with the new speed bonus he got all this time ago, with Nano, and before a lot of armor changes and how block worked, and Lucio's speed being on the mix, yeah, he was pretty crazy with that. Especially when it lasted infinitely when ticked at all by an enemy player. Now that's not the case. To be honest, I would rather just see Annihilation as an ultimate removed and replaced with something else, and I may have an idea that may fit his character a lot more than what Annihilation does, and really leans into his direction as a null sector leader. He is the leader piece. He is basically a king of his troop. And it does kind of sadden me. There's probably a reason for it, that why they haven't brought in over any PvE units into PvP as an ability. The only time they've done this is Slicers with Bastion and Mirror Watch. That was like the most fun I've had on Bastion in any amount of time I've ever played the game. I don't care if that ult was terrible, just the amount of distraction they caused and just having little allies run around with you that weren't your team was just pretty funny and really cool. I want them to lean more into that, especially because now that Mirror Watch is probably not coming back, just feels like wasted potential. We can see it's possible. Now, doing the idea I have might be a lot harder and much harder to balance, but there's ways to tune it that might not feel as bad, and it may be strategically strong, but not oppressively strong, if that makes sense. I don't know, we'll have to see. Because it could be annoying with where I'm going to take this, but generally a Ram that uses it is using it more as an actual diversion and to alleviate his tanking pressure. People could also just choose to ignore it if it's in a bad spot. But similar to Bob, we're going to have another AI on the field that is primarily melee and charge space. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, akin to the Charger from Null Sector and the Invasion storyline that was missions in Season 6? 7? I don't remember what it was. It was one of those seasons where Null Sector was the main focus, where War God came out as a mythic skin. Now, I don't have any footage I can show of the actual idea for this in a game, because I don't have that ability in Workshop, sadly. I understand Workshop, but doing that without a bunch of weird nuances just wouldn't be great to work with. I don't know what to call the ultimate yet, because I kind of just thought of this idea and immediately decided to record it, but basically the thought is a high-cost ultimate that Ram gets and calls down a strike, which is a drop pod on his location, or in front of him, like Orbital Ray for Juno used to be before they changed it to be on her. He summons a marker in front of him that then slams down with a big drop pod that will probably... The initial balancing I thought for it was it would do 200 damage on impact at the center, much like a meteor strike. It doesn't really have the ability to one-shot squishies unless they're low. Then, what pops out of this ultimate, out of this drop pod, is a Charger. Now, we can make this guy extremely big, or we can make him in his normal size and be still pretty tanky. But the point is, what this would do is alleviate a lot of pressure from Ram, as is now a 6th piece on the board, much like Bob. And unlike Bob, who has range potential and can really lock down an area with his high health and damage potential, the Charger is just a tank. He can melee, he can charge and do some pretty hefty damage and maybe even knock down players with that charge. But he's pretty big, has a lot of weak spots, but a lot of HP to make up for those weak spots. But he can still get bursted down pretty fast under focus fire, like any other tank. I mean, we see how quickly Winston just gets deleted, so I wouldn't be surprised. Now here's where the nuances come in for the Charger. The Charger can only melee, then he can also charge at long distances. Now when you get hit by a charge, it will probably send you flying and knock down. And it will do a pretty substantial amount of damage, maybe 125 on contact, maybe a little less than that, maybe more than that. I don't really know yet. We don't know how fast or slow we want this thing to be, depending on how big it is and how much tanky it is, or what its role is supposed to be. Now the cool, intricate parts of it is if this Charger slams into a player, it will stop and begin follow-up punches. Or it will just charge straight through them if that's what we want instead. So it just kind of collides with the entire enemy team, and bada bing, bada boom, they'll just take free damage. Which most players in high rank don't even sit behind the tank, so it would be a good way to keep pressure off the Ram anyways. With this bot, or this Charger, depending on what method it takes, if it slams into a wall, it will get momentarily stunned. That's its downtime. I don't want this thing to be permanent on the board, just constantly charging at enemies and knocking them all over the place, because it's just Bob, but like melee based and way tankier and probably better. So that stun really gives it a moment to be vulnerable if it just willy-nilly charges. But the distraction it can cause and the amount of chaos it can cause could be really, really good at disorganizing teams, which allows Ramattra to stay in his staff form as he prefers precision, tactical precision over brute force. Annihilation being just more brute force, which is not really his style. Now he gets to focus on taking long-range duels, now that he has a Charger, so he can get most of the damage from him. Doesn't mean the Charger will always do that, because players may just choose to ignore the Charger if he's in a bad spot. But if he's in a really, really good spot, because you could probably just hug a wall and put the Charger on high ground if you're looking at a wall, because it would come from the top, that would be a really interesting play. Because now you have a Charger passing your way towards you on the high ground, about to knock you off, or force you off, into the Ramattra's team. The other way to balance this guy I thought about last was, how does it contest objectives? Do we want this guy to contest, or do we not want him to contest? If he doesn't contest, then he can be a lot more powerful. But if he does contest, he would have to be kind of tuned back in terms of his pressure and uptime due to being able to contest like a Bob. Bob is a really good contester, with all that HP and damage potential to laser down people. The Charger, on the other hand, has melee, but it being able to contest and push people off could be really strong. So I could see it not contesting, or I could see it contesting. There's two different forms of balance here, alongside the stun and how much damage and how frequently it charges and how much damage it does, and its HP and cost and all that. But I think contesting objectives may be one of the balance points and levers they could use to really offset this guy's potential. The most unique thing Ramattra will have to control this charger, because it won't just be a dumb AI, is if anyone's played Ark, which is the game I come from and mod from on the side, in that game, you can whistle allied dinosaurs or allied robots or whatever creature you have around you into a location by pressing comma. You whistle to a location and your tamed dinos will all move to this location. Or if you press period and look at a target, they will attack that target. Ramattra can have the same thing bounded to a single button on his Q button. So it's not super annoying for console players either. With this button, there's no way to forcefully disable the charger or anything, or destroy it. It just kind of blows up after a while, which we'll get into its duration later. But basically, when you press Q, with the charger summoned and out of its drop pod, you will signal to it to move to that location, or if you signal it on a target, it will hard focus that target and never stop until you focus it on the ground again. Then it will, if you move it to another location, then it will lose aggro and just chase whoever's nearest, or if you aggro it to another target. So this gives some control to the Ramattra player to send it wherever the hell it wants, or wherever the hell they want. So it gives us some cool pinch potential, putting a charger and your team on the opposite sides of the enemy. You have to look between the charger that's about to knock him into your team and dodge it, or force your team before the charger gets into him. And it just has more control over Annihilation, which I just don't think Annihilation is a really good ult in game balance, or even in game practice. But this ult could be a lot stronger, and hence why I think it should be one of the more costly ultimates in the game, akin to Lucio's Sound Barrier, because this ult could be really, really devastating. Even just being a distraction to a degree, and a way to force people out, even if it doesn't kill people outright, it's just really strong. Now onto the duration of the charger. The only infinite ultimate we've technically had in the game in the past that I remember, besides old Ramattra's ult, where if he was near any enemies, he would keep his Annihilation uptime, before they changed that to 20 seconds or else over time. The only other ultimate to have an infinite duration, outside of the fight even, was Brigida's Rally. Back then in Overwatch 1, Brigida gave armor instead of overhealth, and it stayed permanently, which is half the reason why she was so good, because her fight-to-fight potential and how quickly she built Rally made Zen a crazy dueler because of that extra armor health below his shield HP. So that was half the reason why she was super oppressive, because she made Zen really fucking good. Then I'm thinking, instead of making this guy infinite, because an infinite charge on the field before it dies is just crazy, even if Ram ult back during this time, it's just crazy. So I'm thinking the charger could stay on the battlefield for like a maximum of 30 seconds. 30 seconds is a long time. But it doesn't mean it will live between fights most of the time, because, well, you summon at the start of a fight, the fight goes on for like however long, depending on the rank you're in, because each fight is different between each rank. And after that 10 seconds, it just poofs, it just dies. Now, obviously, things immune to knockback normally, like Orisa Fortify, will be completely immune to the charger, and would technically count as a wall for the charger when it charges. Now, the charger is a lot bigger than any of the tanks on the roster, from what I remember. I don't even remember if the charger in Invasion, because it's been so many years since I've played Invasion, if the charger could be countercharged by Reinhardt and any other countercharges like Brig, Vendetta, Doomfist, Maga. If anything, I feel like it should be given more of a Maga charge. It should be given the Unstoppable effect, which, for something that's an AI and generally is meant to be tanky and less damaging compared to Maga, who's just DPS, this makes a lot more sense, especially with how little it's probably going to charge overall, unless it really needs to get to you, and the stun after it. So I think it's fair and balanced. Because, I mean, you're not going to be able to outcharge this hunk of metal unless you're Maga, which is a stupid interaction, but that's just how the game works. So Maga is the only one that can countercharge a charger, because they both have the Unstoppable effect, and two Magas countercharging each other does happen. Compared to two Orion versus a Maga, the Maga wins every time. It's just really stupid interaction, but it's just how Overwatch rolls, and it's going to work. This is my 2 cents. For an ability name, I don't really know, but it leans into Ramattra's lore about being the leader of Null Sector, and it really gives Blizzard some creative interactions and just really unique design rather than just being an AoE damaging ult that barely does anything. Because I swear to God, using this ult, I feel like every time I use it, I just die because, 1, I'm bad, and 2, that's just hard because any other ult I can get immediate use out of. Ram, you just kind of sit there and take punishment while you do passive damage. That's really boring. I'd rather be able to summon this big boy and just let it take pressure off me and allow me to play the game more rather than just get CC'd to hell. The Charger gets CC'd to hell, and it's an AI, so it doesn't give a fuck. CC would work on the Charger, but obviously to a lesser effect, much like Stalwart Hex. Or not at all if it's like a boop. Anyways, the Charger could be a really cool, unique gimmick, as no other hero in the game has anything close to it, unlike Bob. That the only similar thing is Bob, and Bob doesn't even move or have AI or anything like that, besides shooting things. This thing would path to you, move to you, and completely try to fuck you up. Could be really strong at breaking formations, and if anything like double shield comes around, which I think the meta right now is heavily poke favored, which is really boring in my opinion, poke would get absolutely destroyed by the Charger because they're all in one location, or kind of just in random locations dotted around high ground. The Charger would just be like, no, fuck you, and then bat you off. That's my 2 cents for a ultimate rework for Ramattra. It is definitely not needed, but I just thought to make it more interesting, more unique, and just probably better game design overall than Annihilation, because Annihilation had a lot of problems. The Charger may as well, but I just think it would make more sense for a tank ultimate than whatever the hell Annihilation is, where it's a zoning ultimate, but it's really bad at zoning. That tickle damage can kind of just be ignored for the most part. It does hurt, but like, I don't know. I never felt like Ram's ult was that great after the nerfs. Especially now with what a lot of people play now. I just didn't think it was that good. Anywho, if you have any thoughts or opinions on the Charger Ultimate, let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll be free to discuss it with you. Because while this will never happen, because we've only seen it once with Mirror Watch Bastion, we're probably never going to see anything like this happen. Which kind of sucks, because I would love to see Ramattra get a different ultimate and something unique to Null Sector. Because Null Sector kind of been washed off the board and don't really play a part in the current lore right now, and it's really sad. Could just be really cool. But who knows? We'll see.